Good day, and welcome to Scott's Rambling. Yes, it's a different kind of broadcast today. I decided that I'd do a monologue, and I would basically talk a lot about where we're at, how our program fits into it, how the pandemic of late has changed the way things happen at Sharing the Burden, and how we look ahead to what we're going to do with Sharing the Burden in the future. It seems we've been retrained, and I suppose that means that even coming out the other side, there will be differences. There will be people who are getting used to, and some who like and prefer the possibility of meeting online, virtual meetings through Zoom or Meetup, or whatever you people use. And that's how we've had to even do the recording for broadcasting in most cases. Uh, so anyway, where was Sharing the Burden? Where is Sharing the Burden? Where's Sharing the Burden going? Well, I can say that because I founded Sharing the Burden, and my wife Julia certainly had a lot to do, especially in the initial stages when we were getting going, and she was able to secure room, plenty of room in the church she attended, and which we both attend now and have been for quite some time. And that's the Olive Branch Church in Markham, Ontario, Canada. And we love it there. We love the people, and we love the relationships that we've been able to build over the years while we're housing Sharing the Burden, or one of the Sharing the Burden meetings at least, and more or less a head office for Sharing the Burden, both broadcast and support meetings. Now, there's two kinds of support meetings, as I believe most of you know. We have a jail ministry that, of course, spends time in jail, and we probably spend about 3/4 of our time doing work in the jails. The service we do in the jails is much different in many ways, in that neither party has to come to a meeting. We go into a situation, into an institution, and we announce that we're here and where we're from, and in some cases we're able to go and announce ourselves at the grill of different ranges within a prison, within a jail. At other times, guards will do the solicitation, and either way, we end up with some people, and those people come of their own accord. They're not pushed to come. They come if they want to, and of course we're volunteers. And as a matter of fact, in Sharing the Burden, nobody gets paid, including myself, and that means we're strictly volunteers. We do this because it seems to be the right thing to do for us. That means going into jails when most people certainly would rather be doing something else. We find, however, that going into jails allows us to be really, really, I think, a benefit to many people, and I'm thankful for that. And I've watched our team grow in so many different ways. We're probably of those who are fully qualified to facilitate meetings within the jail framework of Ontario. We've got about 20 now. So, although that probably has changed to some degree due to this pandemic once again. But anyway, what it is today, first of all, what it was, what I started it for. When Julia, that's my present wife, Julia is not Sean's mom, and you'll hear about Sean a little later on. But she's my second wife, and she was, as I say, instrumental in getting us a place to operate. And it was her idea, really, to start meeting regular. You see, I had started Sharing the Burden as a way to help people along the way, whether they be addicts, alcoholics, mental illness, people with mental illness, or simply uncomfortable in their own skin for whatever reason, depressed, anxiety, and all these different things. We decided we wanted to start something that did not have to qualify its members or those who would attend meetings. That part worked out very well. There's so many People who don't know if they or their best friends or their family members need or could use something like this. But the stigma is so much lessened when we're able to take away this qualification. Alcoholics Anonymous, for instance, started the 12-step movement back in the 1930s. We've been able to use, in part anyway, the structure behind that, but we use it for the help or assistance or better living teaching to anybody who will come to our meetings. We are strictly there to support those who want support, and they don't have to be anything. There's no qualification, whether that be religious, color of skin, and none of it. And you don't even have to think about it. There's so many different things people are either prejudiced or stigmatized about today that I just want to say that we're not, as a team, we are not that way at all. And we do meet with every kind of people you can imagine one time or another. So anyway, we started that so we could introduce this movement, this way of life, if you will. And I just call it the recovery way of life. And the reason I have recovery is, twofold. I'm in recovery because I had someone in my family who was in and out of recovery for addiction and multiple addictions maybe. And could not hang in there forever. And Sean, that's my son, he did pass away of a drug overdose back in 2012. And I was able, by the grace of God, to pick up immediately. The shock was unbelievable. I don't even want to try and describe it, but as soon as that subsided enough that I could speak and, explain myself, I was at these types of meetings, and I believed as I shared where I was at that time that many started to share a lot more about similar circumstances, about happenings in their own lives or people close to them. And I guess over a period of time, that was therapy for me, amongst a lot of other things. But and that probably became the greatest therapy for me, and at the same time help others who could be in a position of my son Sean, and maybe, just maybe, interest them somehow, help them, motivate them to want to just hope again, and the motivation to hope is, I think, is number one. In many cases, that takes a superior being, a higher power. Some would call it a religious relationship. I just like to call it for ease of comfort for all different races and religions. So I like to call it a higher power, or God, as each person understands his or her God. And in that way, aside from those who believe absolutely nothing, or believe they believe in nothing, and they're just as welcome. But as I say, there's a spiritual aspect to the program, and the spiritual aspect is such that those who hook on to spirituality, to something, someone, some entity, some power within the spiritual framework, they seem to heal much faster and much deeper and much more long-lasting, permanent in many, many cases, and then those who don't. And that's just a sad thing that I actually pray about and, wish was not in there, but it is. So, that's, and as I say, we started Sharing the Burden to help everyone. And we grew into the jail ministry, and now can have up to 10 meetings per week in 3 different institutions that we go to, but probably within about 50 or more ranges in different areas. So we could have all kinds of meetings going all the time, and we want to. We want to increase the volunteer base, and not just to get a lot of volunteers to do what we do, but to help a lot of volunteers appreciate people for the sake of their being creatures or creations just as they are, regardless of their present surroundings, whether that be a jail, a prison, or a hospital, or or a normal home or apartment, whatever. We wanted to differentiate between a person and a person with a personality and the behavior that person might have from time to time. It might have made an awful mistake, and any of these things, whatever. I mean, the world and God, at least as I understand God, seems to have a way of putting all things back in order if they're not in order at the time. And back in order, we realize somehow we're responsible for what happens in line of our behavior, and what acts we perform in light of this same behavior. And we really, really uh, understand that we'll be responsible, but we are still people, and some make bigger mistakes than others, and all sorts of different things. So we love all people. We do not, nothing has us deciding that we have to make a decision as to whether we can go and see this person or that person based on nature of crime, based on on political senses, on political preferences, and so on. But strictly that they are someone who wants support, and we are a supportive organization with no qualification, so we're there. And that is what makes that particular part work, I believe. So Sharing the Burden started for that, and as I say, over time we've come to have a lot of different people coming to our different meetings. We probably have 20, 30 meeting regularly on the outside of jails in 3 to 4 meetings around the Toronto area, GTA, Greater Toronto Area. And now we have virtual meetings in the place of those. We've been able to amalgamate a couple. We've been able to bring in some new people and bring them in a very different way. So, in a sense, our framework, which again basically was to to have somebody want some support. In other words, something is not right, whether they get a dig for it or whether it's obvious to them, whatever it is. It has not been controlled. They have not been able to control it in the past, at least not all the time, or they wouldn't be coming around to an organization like Sharing the Burden. To even the sense that maybe there's something I'm drawn there to listen, maybe, and maybe I won't take part for years even, but I know they've said I can come in and just sit and listen and so on. I feel like I need to go there. So even that, we want those people. We want all people to come. But as I say, you come with something that's on their mind, and they accept that they're not very successful, if at all, in fixing and controlling and healing and growing around this situation. It's there's a behavior, there's something that needs to be changed somehow. From that we go to a place where maybe there is something greater, even if we didn't believe in anything. And maybe there is, and if we can't come to that for now, like why not? I just use the group, the group consensus as your sense of a higher power. I mean, two heads are better than one. 8 or 10 or 12 or 15 are many, many, many times better. So, we can go to that and quite happily do so very often. So that's where we get going. And a little later, we find that relationship, that spiritual relationship, is somewhat more profound. And we're able to take situations on a moment by moment, day by day basis that are uncomfortable, and literally as in a form of a prayer or a praying entity, if you are that way, or just talking to something, even imaginary, or sharing it with a sponsor in our program, or another contact, another person going through the same kind of program day to day. So once we're ready for that, we're able to turn over every situation as it comes. And we recommend turn it over anyway to whatever you can imagine, and it doesn't matter. Not in my estimation, it doesn't. I mean, the godly forces, the spirituality, whatever it is out there that you believe in, uh, that power, that almighty power, I believe, uh, can be reached in any way. I just honestly believe that if you seek, if you reach out, you'll find something, you'll get something. And as we take these problems, these very real problems, behaviors, addictions, co-addictions, mental illnesses, and so on, and as we literally turn them over as though we were taking a tray full of these things, or the one thing, and actually lifting that tray up and handing it over to this higher power, to this sense of God. And you can do that in an imaginary way. You do that any way you want. But we recommend you do that. And that's from there, we're at a part of the program where we decide, what really is driving me? What things do I need to look at in my life to determine where my problems really are? And, what way can I come up with something a little more concrete to work on? And the answer to that is inventory of ourselves, a moral inventory of who we are, how we got there, and we have formal ways. We have simplistic ways to start that process, and we're happy to demonstrate them. And believe me, they work. But work and whether something works is like anything else. If you work it, it can work. There's no problem that it can work. So let's look at it that way. So, and we go through this process. And by the way, folks, in our program, we do work through the program every year, and we do follow 12 steps, not identical to the original, but very much in keeping with the original. As a matter of fact, more behind us is similar to what more was behind the original making and designing of the 12 steps. Were somewhat more spiritual. I think that's the key entity that maybe many have lost, and we want it, and we're taking it, we're keeping it. So again, here you are doing this inventory, and we learn to again talk to our imaginary friend. If we've developed a more serious relationship, that we communicate with that friend as though he or she, or whatever you believe it to be, is sitting there with you in your car, and wherever you are, wherever you go, you have access to this power. And that really takes you, once you have access to this power and you have friends within a program, people working toward the same end, a comfortability, a productivity, in an ever-changing world, a way to live, and to be okay with what your life is like. So that's what we do in the inventory process, and by and large, we have a couple of areas that are probably more resounding than others. We realize that here lies a problem area. We have ways to narrow them down such that one or two situations, ways, behaviors, etc., may be far more obvious through the inventory process to be in need of help. And of course, that's why we go to these 12 steps, is to help, but help by helping ourselves. In other words, we go to these programs to attend, to focus on whatever is on the table, whatever the situation is, whatever the topic is. And as I say, it's usually the step corresponding with the month. In other words, if there's a fourth step, we learn about it and practice it in the fourth month, which of course is April. And if it's the 12th step, then the 12th month being December, then we work on the 12th step in December. We actually have a devotional called the Life Recovery Devotional that has 30 sharings for each one of these steps that we go over year by year. And that gives us access to 30 days of every month. And where there's an extra one, we work on something else on the extra day. And we're able to, as I say, work the month that corresponds, but also to have something different to focus on every day of that month up until the the 31st. And even then, there are other ways you'd learn to find topic information or common topic information or similar to what you're working on anyway. And then we go into the more spiritual kind of thing. But first, we've got to talk about this. We've got to mull over in our minds what we've turned up with in this inventory, and both good and bad, by the way, folks, not just troublesome stuff. We want to come up with things that we're comfortable with, things we're happy to have, and we even recommend in the beginning, only do it one for one good, one bad, one good, one bad, one good, one bad. And if you only find one thing, if it's only one bad, then make being part of the process as something good you're trying to get out of it. That's a good thing, and you have many to help you. So there's always something, and we recommend trying it that way. And then whatever the glaring thing that came to you, whatever you're there for, or else whatever you've determined through the inventory is really the main problem, well, that's what you're going to work on. That's what you're going to think about. And miraculously, what we've found mostly is that as we worked this way, we're able to come up with something significant and something that can be worked. And as we work on this sort of main area that seems to be what is deep down really making this uncomfortability and all else that goes with that in our lives. So, and it's making our lives messy, uncomfortable. And as we work on that, it seems almost magically, spiritual magic, if you will, that the other things that were less bothersome but were there, they seem to get well as this main thing gets better and better and better. So as you work on your main problem, we'll say it's envy for whatever reason, as we work harder and harder and harder on the envy, and there's lots of ways to do that. And we'll always remember, of course, well, the opposite of envy would be how should we say, satisfaction, contentment. Let's use contentment, being content with the situation you're in. And there's a number of words that we use to find out where we're at, and then we move from there. So anyway, that's how that goes. And in this step, in this fifth part of the program, we mull this all over ourselves. We take it to our sense of the God as we see God, our higher power, and then we tell our inventory, our summation of it, our summary, to a trusted person, a trusted friend. It can be anybody. It could be, as I say, a sponsor in the program if you have such, a friend in the program. It could be a religious person. People who listen regularly to other people in their situations, priests, ministers, imams, rabbis, and whatever else is out there to listen without suggestions. And we make that point too in this part of our program. We're out to get some things off our chest, to express more than anything else, and to ask during this process for anything we really want help with. And this person, if you're a listener, if I'm the listener, I'm not to try and dig things out, try and put my expertise or my experience into this person's expertise or experience. We're a program that leads people to find their own solutions with a spiritual twist, which is what we believe makes it work. So, in other words, we focus on whatever's on the table, and many go home with repair, or with the beginning of repair, with the healing and growing in an area that had nothing to do with the topic, but they have a sense of solution for what this real problem is in their own lives. And this happens all the time. And I believe in the atmosphere that we do our sharing, we're comfortable. Nobody's allowed to tell people, what they should say, how much they should say. we set it up fairly. We allow a certain amount of time for each to share, and we try our best to keep within those boundaries, and we usually do. And we do not comment ever on anyone's sharing. And I shouldn't say we don't, because some people by accident cannot help but sort of continue on someone else's topic. But in the sense that that has become their topic, and that's why they're speaking on it. So that's okay. But we don't say to anyone else, you should, I think you would feel, I feel, we feel, or any of those kinds of things. People come to us and stay with us because they're comfortable. And they're not told where they're weak, where they're strong. None of that. We come as equals. We check our credentials, our titles, our ownership of things. We check all that at the door. We leave it outside. We don't bring that stuff in. It has nothing to do with what we're doing. We're commoners. We're all the same. We believe somehow we've been created the same, and have the same opportunities, often in totally different areas and often spelled out in totally different ways. But we are equals, and we accept that, and that's the great part. Now, friends, I'm going to have to take a break for a little bit of time, give our sponsors and so on an opportunity to tell you who they are, and sometimes, not often, why they come and listen to Sharing the Burden. So I'll be back shortly, and thanks again for being with us.